Everybody, welcome to chapter 4 of our webinar series. Today we are going to dive into the Design System Studio, or the DSS, which I'm really excited about. We have never done a webinar on building out an actual design system based on design requirements like we have in Figma right here. So I'm really looking forward to showing kind of what that process looks like. It's really, really fun and allows you to, excuse me, just get really compelling results quickly without having to write any CSS, which is super awesome. So we're going to be starting from Skuid Central, as we always do. So make sure you have that pulled open. We're going to want to go to Compose and All Pages, and that will allow us to jump into the App Composer for our account hierarchy. And so again, just click the little cogs or gears next to your page name. I already got mine open, so I'm just going to jump over there and close that tab out. And this is the state of where we left off after chapter 3, which is really cool. We're starting to see a lot more of the kind of the foundation of this layout with the accounts on the left. We're seeing our child accounts coming down here on the right. We've got our chart, our KPI tiles laid out, our buttons. And we also have some really powerful functionality as well with regards to viewing cases, adding cases, our opportunities where we're looking at both open and closed, and our list interaction to be able to click blue shoals and then see all the relevant data cascade through for blue shoals. So some really cool things, but from a look and feel perspective, this definitely does not look anything like this. And so that's what we're going to start chipping away at today. So the main focus of today is going to be around getting the list component, like these text elements, cleaned up. And so they'll be larger, a darker black, and then this is sort of a lighter lavender color. And then we'll also get all the different colors for our chart lined up. There's this primary purple color that we'll get put together, and then also make sure that our deck component that's iterating through records looks good, as well as in the pop-up for the new case that our form component. So here's again our finished state. This form component, these fields, so the way that background color is and the size of the text, the font, and all that kind of stuff is what we're also going to work on today too. So really excited about this. We've got a lot to get through though, and are going to dig into sort of getting all these different variants and styles built out so that we can begin to leverage them in our actual page. So the way that I start is when I get a design like this from our designers, or I'm working off a style guide, what I'll do, and what Figma really allows you to do super, super easily, is be able to just see what the CSS properties are of all of these things. So I can see the background colors, I can see border radius here, I can tell it's 8 pixels, there's the background hex code. If I click on the button text, I can see all the different fonts that are, or the font styles that are contributing to this look. So really, really easily, I can see, and I can zoom in here. Maybe I want to see what's the spacing between these two elements at 16 pixels. So I can get my spacing, I can get my colors really, really easily, my font sizes, all those kinds of things. And so this allows me to then take all those things and create base variants that match all that. So spacing units, so I have a spacing unit that is going to be 16 pixels. And I'm going to need a spacing unit that is 45 pixels to be able to handle all those different things, as well as all these different colors. So let's start building. From your account hierarchy, like App Composer page, you can see up here, Design on the top. Hover over that, and then open Design Systems in a new tab. So just Command click. And for the sake of today, I'm actually going to drag my tab all the way over here. Actually to the left of Figma, will be easiest. And then hit Create New. You're creating a new design system. I'm going to call this Account Hierarchy. And clone from ink is fine. Just leave that as the default and hit Create. And so this is now creating a design system. There's a lot of default variants and colors and things like that, but we are going to customize ours to fit the requirements as outlined in Figma. Here we go. Okay, so the way this works is there's variables and components. Components are all of the different components, the ways we present data to the end user. And here the DSS, the Design System Studio, I'm going to call it the DSS from here on out because Design System Studio is a mouthful. But these are all the different ways we can create multiple variants of our components, so the things that we're dragging down into our canvas. So for example, buttons, creating multiple button variants. Maybe you want to use this type of button for a primary action. Maybe you need a totally custom button for something else. So before we go through and get kind of all these different colors, all these different spacing units built in the DSS, I'm just going to show you real quick what like a start to finish of this particular button might be. And I think that'll provide some greater context for what we're doing as we go through and create the rest of these base variants. So if we're going to create this button real quick, the text for the button I can see is 14 pixel is the font size. The radius for the button is 4 pixels, and the background color is this purple. So I'm going to grab this hex code, and I'm going to start there kind of with my colors. So under variables, under brand colors, I'm actually going to just update the brand primary color to be that purple, because that purple is what's used all throughout this application. And so brand primary is by default going to be sort of the base color for most components. So that'll just save us in the future. So I'm going to update that. Get rid of that Sankit hex. There we go. And there is our purple color from like we had from Figma. So what's nice is that Skuid also gives you the ability to quickly add like lighter, darker shades of that if you'd like to, and you can adjust how much like the percentage is lighter or darker. So that's really easy, but we're just worried about this, that primary color. So now that we've got our purple button, that purple color, what we need is a variant that gives us a 4 pixel border radius. And we're also gonna need a text variant that gives us a 14 pixel font size. So let's do that real quick. So under borders, these are my variables. I got a 3 pixel and a 999 pixel, very rounded by default, but I need 4. So I'm going to add a new variant. I'm going to just call this one 4 pixel so I know kind of exactly what I'm dealing with. I'm going to update that border radius to 4. If you did want this to be super round, you can just see this happening in real time as you update, whatever your particular border radius requirement might be. We're sticking with 4. That's our button. So now that I've got a radius in place, when I go to design my actual button component, I can now say, hey, use this 4 pixel border radius and use that brand primary color. So the other thing though that I need is this, I need to be able to say the button text is 14 pixel size. So that's going to be under typography. So in typography, you can see I've got the font family, font size, font weight, line height, all sorts of great things to configure. I'm going to add a new font size. I'm just going to, it's going to be 14 pixels, and I'm going to call it 14 pixels. So I know exactly what I'm dealing with. You may notice that these labels by default are small, body, medium, increase, large, and it is challenging to know, like, well, how do I know that medium means 16 pixels? But this is very exciting. Our next release of Skuid, these by default will now say medium and then in parentheses 16 pixels. So that is a great solve, makes our job a lot easier when designing these things, because you don't have to memorize that medium means 16 and increased means 20. So that will be in our Spark Update 3, which I'm super excited about. Shameless plug for that, but it makes my job so much easier when I'm building out these things. So really, really excited for that. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to call this 14 pixels. And so now we've got our text that we're going to use as the button size. We've got that border radius, and we've got that color. The other thing I'm noticing is that this button has a height of 39 pixels. You can see that 109 by 39. And I'm actually going to just round that up to 40, and that will be our button height. So now it's kind of like working. I think it's easiest to understand perhaps as like a puppet, and you're putting together all those different puppet strings to make sure that when you pull this string, the pointer finger on the left hand moves or something. And that's kind of how you need to think of building out a design system. Is you're taking that end component, in this case a button, but you've got to go sort of backwards and figure out what are those base variants that are contributing to making this a purple button with white text that's 14 pixels and has, a 4-pixel border radius. And that's where it's, building out those variables so you have those options. And then when you come into your components, go ahead and save this as we go. Don't want to lose our work so far. But when you come into your components, so I select my button component, you'll notice this color is now purple. That's because we updated the brand primary color. And this particular button component was looking to that variant, brand primary, as its background color. I'm going to add a new button though, and I'm going to call this button my add case button. Label this whatever you'd like, but for our purposes, I'm designing the add case button, so this works. So now I've already established those different variables, and now I get to leverage them to build this component. So for my background color, any color variant that I put in here is available to me, which is really awesome, not having to paste hex codes around all over the place. I'm choosing from, the colors that I've got, or that I've, established as this is my color palette. So I'm going to choose brand primary. And we definitely need to change the text color because by default, that text was purple and that blends in. So we're going to just make this white. There we go. And the border radius is 4 pixels. So that's the 4 pixels that we just created. So I'm going to use that. The live preview is really helpful. If we were doing rounded, you can see your changes, being implemented. We are doing 4 pixel though, which is definitely a lot more subtle. And then the border, we're going to leave that as primary, and I'm going to change the border color to be brand primary because we don't have a distinct border here. Let's just double check. Yep, no distinct border. Cool. So with that, we've got our border radius, our background color, and now we just need that height to be 40 pixels, and we need the text to be a little bit larger. So font size, 14. There we go. And height of the button is 40. So I'm going to save that. You can see just how quickly we're able to take, okay, these few variants, and now let's put together the finished component, which is the button. The key though is you've got to understand what you need to build out for first, like the color, the border radius, the text size, all those kinds of things. Now that we've got though our button component, I'm going to go back to the app composer. And anytime you create a net new variant in a DSS, you need to refresh your app composer to be able to point to that particular style variant. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh. If you're modifying an existing style variant that's being leveraged on your page, you don't need to refresh at all. It's automatically cascading through, which is super convenient and a huge time saver. So now I'm going to point the Skuid page at the design system. So on the top level page properties, click up there. And then the top right, I've got the ability to choose a design system, and I'm going to choose account hierarchy, which is the design system I was just working on. This then gives me access to all the different things that I've styled in that design system. So because I have this new awesome button component for add case, I'm going to click on my add case button. I'm going to go to the styles property for that component. And there's this style variant that I can choose from. And so there are all my buttons, and there's my new add case button. So when I select that and save, this button now I don't have to do any design in here. It's all taken care of in the DSS. So it has that style value. So this add case button, let's refresh our page. And there it is. There's add case. Now this one looks a little strange because we haven't styled yet our secondary button to be that same, 40 pixel height and border radius and all those kinds of things. But you can just see how rapidly you're able to create these components and match design requirements without having to write any CSS and then having a variant that you can leverage in any of your Skuid pages that are pointing to that design system is extremely awesome and super powerful. And just to highlight really quickly, and then we'll get into building out the rest of this stuff. If I wanted to, I'll just type in something really obvious and I'll save this. This is just to highlight kind of how this cascades through. If I go back to my page now, because my button is looking at that brand primary color, you'll notice anything that's looking to brand primary. So our chart was looking at that. Looks like our hyperlinks or our reference fields are looking at that. And if I refresh now, without making any changes in the app composer, that new color is going to cascade through everywhere that is leveraging that color, which makes change management when it comes to styles super convenient. Let's say you need to make a table cell instead of 12 pixels, you need it to be 14 pixels to make it more readable. Instead of going everywhere to do that, you make a change in one place, save, and then all your font sizes have updated across the board. Really, really convenient. That is not our design though, so I'm going to switch this back, save, and we'll get going with building out all of our. We're going to start by building out all of our like base level variables, and then start going through some of our components. We're not going to get through all the components today, but we're going to get through a good little bit, but definitely kind of knock out all of our variables. So going back to Figma now, we already found that we are definitely going to need a spacing variant of 16. We've got 45 pixels there. We've got 34 pixels, it looks like, between this button and the top of the page. And we've got all these colors. So we'll start by adding these colors. Oh, we've also got the background color of this KPI tile, which is this super light gray. So we'll go through and we'll start adding all of our colors first. So I'm just going to start with this orange. So I'm going to grab that hex style. My colors, I'm going to add, I'm just going to call this chart orange. And I'll paste my hex code. And then for this, because I'm only using that one shade, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit and get rid of the darker and lighter styles because I don't really need those. And I'm going to add a new color. This time it's going to be this pink. So I'll go back there, paste my hex code, make sure that's formatted correctly. Call this chart pink. And back to Figma, grab my green. What's nice is once you do this, you can import and export design systems into different orgs. So you only really have to do this once. Once you have a DSS that fits all of your brand requirements, regardless of what org you're in, you can always export it and import it into your new org and be up and running with your design system, which is really convenient. Chart green and two more. So chart blue, really creative names here, I know. And our last one, I'm going to call this teal. So chart teal. Sweet, so I'll save that off. So we're starting to build out all the different colors that we're going to be using in our application. So you've got our color variants, and I want to also grab though the light gray for this particular KPI tile, and then also this light purple and this darker black for the text. So let's do that now. So for this one, I'm going to call this just gray 1. And this text, again, Figma makes this so easy. I click on this, I've got all the details that I need for creating a design system. So I'm going to grab that color, that hex code, and I'm going to call this dark lavender. There we go. And lastly, this black, which is a darker shade. And we'll call this dark black. Paste that in. Okay. So now that we've got our colors, what I'd like to do next is our borders, because that's next in the list. We don't have a lot of borders. We already took care of our 4-pixel border. So that's done for this button radius. That's all good. This KPI tile, that has a 8-pixel border radius. These white cards that are holding our content, let's see what we've got here. 16-pixel border radius. So a little bit steeper there. And let me see, I think those are all the border radiuses that we've got. So we already did 4. We've got 16. 24, the search field. Let's get that. All right, so we'll click on borders now in the DSS. So we've already got our 4. We need to add 8, 16, and 24. So I'll just click this 3 times. We'll just move through this quickly. 8 pixels. Again, I'm just calling this 8 pixels and makes it the easiest to identify later. 16 pixels is the title, 16 pixels is the border radius, and lastly, 24 pixel and 24. Cool. So there's our border radiuses. So we'll be able to leverage those when we build out the KPI tiles, when we build out these white cards. So that'll be ready for us. So I'll save that. Next, we want to do the shadow that is behind. Let that save. Perfect. There's a slight shadow behind these cards. And so, yep, there's the box shadow. So let's get that. We're definitely going to want to replicate that. It looks pretty cool. So we'll go to our shadows. I'm going to add a new one, and we'll just call this page section shadow. And grab all this stuff. Actually paste that over in my scratch pad so I don't have to go back and forth between these two. And let's see. All right, so for this top one, we're going to do, that's a 8. This is 16. And spread is 0. And then the RGBA. It's nice this takes hex or RGBA, which is convenient, because we want a little bit of opacity in this shadow. So paste this in. Make sure I close that parent. All right, so there's that shadow. And then there was also, just to show you all what I'm doing. So that was our first one, 0, 8, 16, 0 without RGBA. Then there's the second one, which is 0, 4, 6 RGBA. So 0, 4. This is why I'm grateful for designers. I don't need to think through what the best looking shadow is. They just give me this information and I just plug it into DSS. It's great. So paste our last RGB in there. Perfect. Okay, cool. So there's that shadow. That looks good. Save that off. Next, after shadows, is spacing and typography. So for spacing, we've already identified a good bit of different spacing units. The gaps between these tiles, spacing between these elements. And so I am just going to kind of rapidly go through and create all these variants. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6 different spacing units that we're going to need. So we'll go down to this one and we're going to start from the smallest and work up. So we need 20. And these are in addition to the ones that are provided. So there's 8, 12, 16, 24, 32. These are in addition. So that's why we're creating these. We'll use some of those existing ones. No point in creating 2 of the same space, but these are the additional ones that we'll need. So 20, make that accurate. And then for this next one, 21, can be very precise and make sure we deliver the exact design that our designers have put together. So 2021, there's also a 34 that was between that button and the top of the page, or top of that card. So 34 pixel. And then a 37 and a 45. Call that 45 pixels. And then our last one is 47. 47. So that's all of our spacing. And that's going to be really useful for not only the spacing between elements on the page, like between our components, but our, for example, like our responsive grid component or anything like that inside of the actual component properties itself, these spacing units are now available for us. So when we're setting column widths or division widths, we've now got the ability to hook into the spacing units that are available to us, which is really awesome. So now that we've got spacing, let's do typography. So let's see what we've got. We already did our 14. Let's see, so that's 14. Okay, so that's already taken care of. That's 14 as well. 18, 24, 18. Let's see if there's anything else that jumps out. Just make sure. 20. Okay, so 14, 18, 20, and 24. 24 it looks like. Okay, so let's add those typography sizes. I've already got our 14, so we just need 18, 20, and 24. So we'll call this one 18, 18, 20, and 24. Awesome. So that finishes off our variables for now. So we've got, we set our brand colors, our borders, shadows, spacing, and typography. If we run into anything that we need to adjust later, we can obviously always come in. You see how easy it is to add a variant. But for now, it looks like we've captured most of the things that our designers have set up that we're going to need to be able to deliver this type of look and feel. So now we'll go and do something a little bit more fun, which will have an immediate impact. Let's get this chart put together. So we're going to components now because we're going to design the way that our components look and feel. And we'll go into our chart component. So click on that. I'm not going to create a new chart variant because we're only using one chart. And so by adjusting the default style, I won't have to go to the app composer and point this chart at a new style that I create. The default will just be updated. So it's just going to cascade through to it. So that's also just a nice little time saver. If you're creating multiple variants of something, obviously, then that's important. And there's are often use cases for that. But every now and then you'll have, just something is always going to look one way, and you may as well just update the default then because you don't have to worry about it. So background color is going to be white. And here we're just going to fly through and apply all of our very cleverly named chart colors. So chart teal, chart blue, chart green, pink, and orange. That's all we did for now, so I'm going to get rid of this last one. I don't want that sort of odd color sneaking in there. And the chart component, we leverage HighCharts API to bring in a lot of our charts. So in terms of the configuration at the DSS level, we're really just dealing with the colors of the charts that are coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now, because this is default, it will cascade through to our application. And so I'll go over there and refresh our Skuid runtime of the account hierarchy. We'll get to see that come through. Oh man, and that coral color go away as well. Should be nice. So let's see what this looks like. Cool, so much better. So our chart's looking great. We've got a lot of work to do though for the rest of this page. So let's get back to it. So for this piece, our chart colors are good to go. Let's go ahead and do the deck component. So the deck component is what's iterating through our child accounts. And just for reference in the actual runtime of the finished result, you can see here some differences. So there's no border around these, like what we're seeing in our default right here. So we're definitely going to want to get rid of that. And the table and tab sets inside of it, we're going to cover those in another section. But we need to clean up those cards. And then the other place where a deck is being used is in our view cases. So we need to design, this one does have a border, you can see that, and it's got these pretty cool custom text input fields where it's slightly taller, it's got that gray background. So let's go ahead and get that configured. So going back to our design system, got a lot of tabs going now. Let's go to the deck component. And we're going to create a new deck variant. We've got a couple different decks here, so I don't want to just adjust the default. I'm going to create some new variants to keep them nice and distinct. So for this one, I'm just going to call this deck of child accounts. And what I'm going to update here is the card properties for this particular deck. I want to take away the border. So for the border properties, I'm going to give that a size of none. So you see the border disappear there. And I'm also going to take away the padding. We don't want any padding on this particular one. So I'm going to switch. This allows you to select, right, left, top, bottom. I'm going to switch it to this one all because I only want to push this once and hit none. So if we still had a border, you could see kind of what's happening here. So there's no padding. There's a little bit of padding, so on and so forth. We want none, but we also do not want a border. So I'm going to get rid of that. That's all we need to do for this one, because really all our deck is doing, we're putting a tab set and a table inside of it, and those are styled as their own components. So we're just really focused kind of on that card and making sure that it doesn't have a border, and that our one for cases does have a border. So we'll do that now. So there's the deck of child accounts. And just the default kind of help preview text that says deck of accounts, so don't get confused by that. Our title is right up above it. And so this one is going to be deck of cases. And for this, we want to get the card styled in such a way. We go a little bit on our own here because we didn't get a style design for the view cases. And that's because I forgot to ask our design team to style what those cards should look like. So what we're doing is we're just extrapolating from this design, and we're going to use this dark lavender color as the border. That's what's being used elsewhere, and so we're going to stick with that for consistency's sake. So for the card, going to go down border. We're going to keep the border as primary, but the border color, we're going to go find our dark lavender color and update it there. The well, let's make sure. I think that's actually a lighter lavender. Oh yeah, okay. Or no, yeah, that should be fine. We'll just keep it at that. We can adjust it. That looks a little bit dark, but if that seems too dark when we open the sliding panel, we can just come back in here and adjust it. So we'll leave it as dark lavender for now. The next thing we're going to do is get rid of the padding. We don't want padding on this either, and we'll switch that to none. So let's go ahead and save that. And this just gives us the ability to, if you recall, in our view cases, we've got a wrapper with some buttons, our save and cancel, in our deck that's going through all the cases. We'll set some spacing on there at the wrapper level, just so that all of our content has the spacing that we want around it. So now that we've got those two decks in place, let's go back to our app composer this time. And because we've created net new variants, we're going to refresh our app composer so that we can point our deck component at the new deck variants that we just created. Okay, here we go. So we'll scroll down here first, deck, style properties, and we're going to choose our deck of child accounts. And then for the view cases, click that button, go to its actions, open the sliding panel. You can double click that. And here we're going to put this deck on our deck of cases. And this wrapper, like I said, we're going to give it some spacing just so it's not scrunched up against those, the border of our cards. And we'll just do a reduced spacing. You can see there's our new style variants, the spacing units that have come in. We used reduced all the way around. Hit save there. And just go to our runtime real quick. So this border should disappear around our child accounts, and we should have a border in our cases. Nice, so that's gone. These borders are around our table, which we're going to configure later. And then for our view cases, let's see here. I think we've got a case. Need to create some test case data here. And actually, as I'm clicking this, okay, there goes, there's that. We will, oh, we need to make sure our spacing goes through. I remember in chapter 2, we talked about having the enable condition on whether or not there was a case here. That is my bad. We forgot to do that. So let's actually do that really quickly and make sure our spacing is there, saved. So all we're doing is an enable condition. So view cases, click the view cases button, go to display logic and enable, so add a new enable condition. And we're basing this off of a model property, whether or not our open cases has data rows. So if there's cases for that particular account, that list of account hierarchy, then we'll enable that button. And if there's not, then we'll disable it. Also, if you click on enable conditions itself, you can choose to show a message when it's disabled. And we're going to say no open cases. So that'll just let folks know why they can't actually click that button. Yeah, must have forgot that at the end of chapter 2, but now we are, now we've got that fixed. So let's go and take a look at view cases. Okay, cool. And now Humboldt view cases is disabled. And if we hover, it says no open cases. Perfect. So that's working. And let's check our spacing here. I was not seeing the spacing coming through how we wanted it. It was right up against that card. We might need to actually just add, oh, I know why, because I put the spacing on that wrapper, and what I needed to do is put the spacing on the form inside of our deck, because the deck is the where we don't have any padding on that card. And so our form then needs a little bit of spacing around it. So we're going to do that there. So we'll do that to reduced. This is why it's really useful to be able to like preview your work really quickly, so you can make these little adjustments as you notice them. So let's refresh. And we'll go to, or actually Costo. Now we'll have view cases, much better. We haven't touched spacing yet between this element and that button, so don't worry. But now we can see that our deck is coming in as we expect it. We've got some spacing between the form component inside of that, and our child accounts are also coming through. That deck is coming in without any of those card outlines, so that's great. So again, moving back and moving quickly through our components, we're going to do the filter set and input text area, and the select and the form. So we don't have a lot to modify in some of those, so we'll move fairly quickly. The filter set is next, and this one is really simple. This is where we have our search right here. And so all that we're doing in the design system is we're taking off that border. So we don't want that to have a border. So our search property, oops, border, not search. Border is none. So that will remove that. The search accounts field itself, that is a text input, which we'll style. The thing we just removed is this outer border around that component, because our design does not have that. So that's done. And now we'll go to input text. So scroll down here to our input text. Oops, click that again. This is alphabetical. Just make it a little bit easier to find. And we're going to give this several different adjustments. So what input text is, going back to sort of our puppet string, you know how for the button we set up the text size, the color, the border radius, all those kinds of things. Text input is going to be what appears in our forms. It's going to be what appears in our search on that filter, and we're gonna use that pretty extensively in other components. And so we're going to start sort of again at that base level and just adjust our input text and our input text area. And so the changes that we need to make here are, we need to change that background color to that gray 1. And there is no shadow, so we're going to turn our box shadow off. And border radius is also none. And border is none as well. And then we had it was definitely a little bit taller. 40, okay. Perfect. So we're going to use a height of 40. There we go. And then the text size or the font size itself is 14, I believe. So there's the container for that. And then we used in the form itself our font size kind of for just entry, like information, is 14 because we have that same matching in our table. So I'll make, anytime we use this text input, the font size of 14. Cool. So that looks good. Now the padding, we are going to adjust a little bit for the input text. We're going to give it padding all the way around of 16 pixels, and that is regular. Again, with our Spark update, this would say regular and then parentheses 16 pixels. So really excited for that. It's going to be super useful. For now, though, we are good to go there. And so I'm going to do essentially the same thing for input text area because we want these fields to all look the same on our form. What we're really configuring right now is when we hit add a case, these are the fields. So that's the 40 pixel height, the 14 font, and then this is a text area for the description. So we need to get that looking right too. So input text area, background color, gray 1. Border of none, border radius, none, box shadow, none, and font size 14, and padding, regular, and height, min height 48 is actually fine. We want this to be suggestive of a longer, like a place to be able to enter in more text, so a longer text area. So 48 is higher than 40, that should look fine. That's an obvious statement, but that'll look good to just kind of differentiate. Here in our finished, you can see description is clearly like a larger area, so that works well. So we're going to leave that alone at 48. Going to go ahead and save. And because I'm not creating a variant here, this means that when we design our form, which we'll get to shortly, it's going to inherit the default input text and input text areas that it's looking at. The last thing we want to do is design the this little drop down, the pick list for which account we're adding this to, this field right here. And in the design system, that is called the select. So we need to find our select component. It's right here. And you'll notice, like when I hover on it, we've got our nice brand primary purple coming through, and the hover state is that purple as well. That's because this is by default looking to brand primary, which is why updating that brand primary color to be like our main color is a big time saver, because most components are leveraging that color as the primary brand color and saves us from having to configure. If you are wanting to switch that up or need to, again, very easy. You're just adding multiple variants and then designing each one for whatever you want to use. This time, all that we're doing, because our hover states and colors and all that are set up, we just need to change the height to 40 so that it matches our text input. There we go, 40. And we are good. Actually, our font size as well should be 14 to match. Cool. That's good. Okay, so now that we've got our text input or text input area and our select, those are the fields or the field types that are being used in our form component when we're creating a new case. And so again, going back to that puppet, now that we've sort of built those base things out, we can go to our form, which is kind of the finished iteration of that, and style it leveraging the variants that we've already created. So let's go and select form. So you can see by default, our text input and text input areas are already updated because we were designing, the default thing. And the way, though, that we can see this is there's this nested components property on a form, because there's a lot of nested components that are coming into a form, because forms can have these selects, they can have text areas, they can have just text inputs, they can have numbers and date pickers and all sorts of things that we need to be able to configure. And so here is where you choose, if you've created, different style variants over here, like text area input, input text, checkboxes, all these radial lists, like tons of different stuff. You've got different variants. You can choose each of those then to make your form component look the way you need it to. Because we were just changing the text input and text input area defaults as well as the select defaults, those have already come through. And so we don't actually need to modify anything on this form. It's good to go. So now that we have done that form, let's go ahead and we'll just show you. We need to change that hover state, but that'll come later. This is our out of the box. So this is before we've refreshed. We've made a lot of changes to text inputs and forms, but haven't refreshed yet. So just want to show you the difference. And again, because we're using that default, I'm not needing to refresh the app composer to point it to a new variant. It's already looking at default. So let's refresh. Now we'll hit add case and our styles are coming through. That's awesome. This lack of spacing here at the bottom is a little rough. So let's fix that while we're in the context of this. That's our sliding panel. So add case, actions, double click show modal to open that. And for our form, we're going to add some spacing at the top of reduced and the bottom of reduced. Let's let that breathe a little bit. Refresh real quick just to see how that looks. Much better. Cool. So that's awesome. Nice. There's the hover states we can choose from. Our design looks good. And now let's go back to the DSS and we are going to work on the list component. So this is, this is what we've got right here. And you can see these are smashed right up against the left side of that list, the text. This hover state is a little bit darker. We're going to want to lighten that up as we see here, this particular state. And actually this color we didn't grab yet. So I'm going to create that. We're going to need that variant to be able to satisfy that list hover state. So let's grab that hex code, go back to our variables. We're going to add this and we're going to call this light gray. Paste that in there. Cool. So that's that hover state. And so now that we have that that color, that variable available to us, we can now, when we go to our list, we can set up the hover state to be light gray. So let's go to our list component. We only have one list, so we're just going to mess with the default one. We don't need to add a new variant of this. And what we're going to do here is focus on the row first. So for our row, we want some padding on the left side of this row. So you can see this text to this edge is 23.08. So we're going to use our 24 pixels spacing. So on the left side of we're looking at the row piece of this list. We're going to scroll down to our padding. And for the left, we're going to go and select our 24, which is actually one of our existing ones already. It's actually increased. So choose the increased. And you can see that jump over. So that's good for padding. And then the hover state we want to get. So again, make sure as you're doing this that you have opened up the row. That's what we're adjusting right now. So the padding, left side is increased. And then you can see the hover state for the row. We're going to change that background color to be our light gray, which is right here. You can see, yep, light gray. And anything else, background color, gray one. Nope. So let's save that. The list will only get a hover state if there's an interaction with that list. And because we have an interaction in this list where we click, to query all this, that's where we're going to see a hover state when we hover. A hover state when we hover. So right now it's dark gray and it's scrunched up against the left side, but because it's the default list, let's preview. And we'll see our changes come through from the DSS. Nice, so that's scooted over and that is a lighter hover. That is awesome. Oh, our input text is also updated up here because the search is using input text, and we will have to style the button because that does not look good. We're gonna have to style the button that launches the search to match this search so that it kind of, the search input text field, so that it all blends together into what we can see here in this runtime. So we'll get to that when we do buttons. For now though, the list, the other thing we want to get is that in our list, we've got this dark black and it's size 18 font size. And then we've got the smaller for the city and the state as 14 pixels, and it's our dark lavender color. So how we do that is that lists have primary, secondary, and tertiary styles that you can configure. So if we go back to our app composer on this list, you can set the display style override to be primary, secondary, tertiary. So we need to then give those primary, secondary, and tertiary styles the configuration that we want. So for primary, the font size, font color is great, but font size needs to be 18. And the font weight is going to be, we're going to go with regular. We don't want it to be super bold, so that's fine. Font weight, don't worry about selected state. We aren't selecting these. Secondary style is going to be our dark lavender color. So we'll find dark lavender. And the font size is going to be that 14. So we'll select that. Don't worry about selected state. And then lastly, the tertiary style. This is what we're going to do. So we added that cool little feature that says, 4 child accounts or 3 child accounts or whatever. We're going to make that a little bit smaller than this, just for the sake of the visual hierarchy. And we're going to use our tertiary to do that. So for tertiary style, we're going to stick with dark lavender, but it's going to be a little bit smaller. So font size, actually, we're going to stick with small. That's 11 pixels. The secondary text color, we have dark lavender 14, and primary we have 18. And oh, actually no, we need it to be that that dark black. It's that hex 4444. Let's just confirm real quick. Hex code 44. Yep, perfect. Okay, which is what we call dark black. So now that we've got that set, we'll save the DSS, and then we need to in our app composer, we're going to make sure that we've assigned each of those list fields the primary, secondary, or tertiary so that it comes through correctly. So this is a primary style, billing city and billing country we want as our secondary, and then child accounts we want as our tertiary. So we'll save. Now let's refresh. Keep your eye on the list here. You should get some better sizes and some colors. Man, awesome. So that's done. Very, very nice. And yep, that matches. It's great. So we're getting there on our design. Very, very cool. And the what I want to look at now in the time that we have left is just kind of a quick little review of what we're doing here. So what we did today was we created our button just for the sake of showing kind of what this looks like. But then we created a lot of base variants. So all of our spacing, our typography, and our shadow, as well as our borders. And that gives us the ability to, when it comes time to build out some of the rest of these components, where, as you saw when we were building this list and this form and others, we're able to leverage those text sizes and colors and styles that we've already defined. So that's an important kind of paradigm to approach the DSS with, of thinking of kind of what are those base values to sort of work your way up to what your finished state is like. And starting there just then makes it really easy when you get to, for example, your button component, and then you're like, oh yeah, I've already created all these things, boom, boom, boom. Sometimes though, if you start at the button component, you realize, oh, okay, I don't have a 18 pixel font yet, so I need to go create that. And then you can jump over to your variables, create your 18 pixel font, and then come back to your button, and it's right there for you to use. So not all the time will you have such a fully baked design, and sometimes it's just kind of, you've got most of it and then you need to make some adjustments as you go. And Skuid makes it really easy to do that, because as you saw, like, we're able to do this immediate kind of preview and review, make sure that our colors and things are looking good, make sure that our spacing is working, and those kinds of things. So Really fun session. I love the DSS. It allows me to be able to like build super cool things like this and lots of other POCs for our customers, matching their branding requirements and style guidelines, and just do some really like cool looking stuff, like enterprise grade looking applications without having to dig into any CSS or need to worry about that. And then having a design system that is scalable and allows for consistency across all of your different Skuid pages. And the speed of iteration is super powerful. If I make a change here, it cascades through then all of my Skuid components that are leveraging that particular style variant. So really cool stuff. We're getting a lot closer to what this end product will look like, and we'll focus on cleaning up the tab set and the tables and some of those things, as well as buttons in our next chapter. But thank you so much again for joining. Really enjoyed this. And as always, feel free to reach out with any additional questions you might have.